project that I'm most passionate about is a project that I'm sure we're going to discuss later, The Unexpected, which is a short film specifically on organ harvesting, and I was in post production heavy on that, like this last year this time, and now it's going to be a feature movie.
Hey, Nick Nanton here, and thanks for tuning in to Now to Next. I want to make sure you don't miss a single episode of this show on YouTube. So before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, just go into your settings and switch on notifications. Thanks for watching. All right. Hey, everybody. Nick Nanton here. Welcome back to Now to Next. Glad to be here with you today. Got a friend of the podcast and one you might recognize from some other posts I've shared and other things recently, but we'll go ahead and just do the formal welcome to Remi Adeleke. Remi, welcome to the show, man.
Hey, thanks for having me on. It's an honor. Always an honor and blessing to be with you, brother.
It's good times, man. Good dude. You've been up to a ton, man. So for those of you who don't know, Remi is a former Navy SEAL, writer, actor, recently added director to his credentials. He's got some cool podcast stuff going on as well. Remi, we're going to talk a lot about your new movie, The Unexpected, and how people can support that. But man, tell us a little bit about the last year in your life, dude. It looks like it's been absolutely insane.
Yeah, the last year's been crazy. Man, going back, last year this time I was in Puerto Rico shooting a movie with Lionsgate and Gerard Butler called The Plane. That movie's going to come out this January. And then I got picked up to do this unscripted show called Who Dares Wins in the UK. So we shot that. That's out now. And then that show got picked up in the US version for Fox. So we shot that already in Jordan. That's going to air this upcoming January. And but the project that I'm most passionate about is a project that I'm sure we're going to discuss later, The Unexpected, which is a short film specifically on organ harvesting, and I was in post production heavy on that, this last year this time, and now it's going to be a feature movie. So yeah.
I'm super excited for you. Well deserved on that. Tell me real quick too, just so people don't miss it. Also, I got to catch it on a plane the other day. The ambulance. You were also in the ambulance, one of the main operators, in the police force. It was pretty cool to see on the screen. How long ago did that film? I mean, it came out not that long ago, but I'm sure it was a while ago you filmed.
Yeah, we shot that, about almost 2 years ago, in January 2021. And that was a fun ride. We shot that up in LA. I played an undercover cop, first time playing an undercover. I'm typically playing military roles, so that was a cool experience. And that came out, I think February this year. It's done pretty well. But yeah, another Michael Bay film, man. It was a wild ride, but it was fun.
I love it. And obviously you've learned a lot from being around some of the best in the business, from actors to directors. One thing that scares me as a director is directing actors, because it's, like I always tell people, because people often call me about doing a scripted project, and I'm like, here's the deal.
Yeah.
Good, cheap actors are impossible to find. That's just not happening. If you want someone to act, you're going to have to pay for it, because bad acting ruins everything. All right. So you decide that you want to direct your first short film. You start thinking about the topic. Tell me about some of the topics, maybe if you considered other topics, or you instantly knew you want to dive right into organ harvesting.
Yeah, I definitely did consider another project, a project from a screenplay that I wrote. That project is called The Chameleon, espionage thriller. It ended up getting picked up by a big producer, and then it ended up getting picked up as a book series with HarperCollins William Burroughs. So that was initially the project that I was hoping to be my first project. But after working with you and other groups in the human trafficking space, I mean, the big turn for me came in 2018. I went down to Haiti and DR, or OUR, which you're familiar with. And that was an eye-opening experience for me. And I just remember I was walking down this particular slum in the DR, where the parents would sell their children their daughters specifically to traffickers who would take them up to the north of DR to have sex and essentially be raped by Westerners who would pay for sex services. And I remember this guy, as I was walking down this slum, he pulled me into this chapel that was no bigger than the size, maybe 3 toilet stalls. And at the end of the chapel was a baby in a casket, a 6-month-old baby. And the guy explained to me that the baby died because the mother didn't have enough food. She wasn't getting enough food and sustenance herself to produce milk, so she was able to get some formula and mix the formula with the local bad water because the water in this slum was pretty bad, and that's what ultimately ended up killing the baby. And what this liaison was trying to explain to me was he was trying to help put me in the headspace because I couldn't understand how a parent could sell their child, and he was trying to put me into the headspace of the parents and show me that they're utterly desperate
Right.
in their minds. It's like either I sell my daughter so my other two kids could survive, or I don't, and all my kids die. And it was still hard for me to understand as a parent myself, having four children.
Right.
But that kind of began to get the wheels turning in my head. How can I do more? Because I can go, or you are land and rescue. We could all go and rescue 200, 300 kids in a month, but there's going to be 200, 3,000 more, not just kids, but men, women, and children that are going to need rescuing as well. So when I got back from that trip, interestingly, I had these voicemails from Michael Bay's producing partner, Mike Case. And he was like, Remi, where have you been? Like, we've been trying to get a hold of you. Michael Bay's starting his new movie at the time. This movie was 600 Ground. He was like, we want you to be the lead consultant on it. And it was at that moment that those two worlds collided, which was crazy. It was like, here I have this horrific thing that I just saw. Here I'm working in the film business. How can I merge these two ideas to essentially create a psyop type operation? Because, as we know in the military, we do these psyop operations in order to educate the public so that they can help, get on our side a little bit more, win the hearts and minds. So in my mind, I was like, why don't I try to do that through a film and educating? So that's kind of how it all kind of came together. That was the beginning stages of it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's obviously in any way, shape, or form, trafficking is completely wrong, right? It's wrong at the most base level of humanity. It's spiritually wrong. I mean, just every way, shape, and form. However, um, I don't think many of us have ever experienced what some of these people experience who
Yes.
decide, quite frankly, that that's their best option.
Yeah.
And I don't. That's not fun or pleasant to talk about, but I think it is very important that we think through some of these things because it's a complicated issue.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's certainly lots of again, it is at the base level absolutely wrong. Number two, there's a lot more egregious levels of people just taking advantage of other people. But man, it's
Yeah.
just I don't want people to forget that there are places in this world where a mother has to make a decision
Yeah.
whether to sell a child in order to feed the rest of her children. Like that's what I want you to get. Still wrong, yes, but
Yeah.
think about the fact that most of us are sitting here in an air conditioned room with great internet. With I'm drinking Fiji water. My wife calls it bougie water. It's like I mean, there. And look, I'm so thankful I get to do what I do. I know you are as well. It doesn't mean that I need to go live that way,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
it does mean I should at least be conscious of it and constantly be asking myself, like, based on the situations, and this is my wording of it, you guys word it however you want, based on the situation God's put me in, what is my responsibility to those around me and others in the world? In many cases, by the way, it's honestly just checking on a neighbor. It's not,
Yeah.
you don't have to go to Haiti. Like, how many of us have checked on a neighbor and worried about them? Like, yeah, like
Yeah.
it could just be that. And I say just because that seems so simple. One of my favorite axioms is everything easy to do is equally easy not to do. And most of the time we just don't do them, like the simple things. So it doesn't have to be this. However, I will say, going to Haiti also with Tim Ballard, Operation Underground Railroad, it changed my life. I mean, I've been to Guatemala, I've been to Acapulco, Mexico with my kids, the second most dangerous city in the world. I've been now to after that been to Iraq with Tim. I've never seen a place like that, dude.
Yeah.
Haiti is
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
crazy, crazy place, and I happen to have the fortune of being there the day that Trump called it, whatever he
Yeah.
called it, right? And so I'm like, oh my god, but it's hard to argue with. But
Yeah.
that's a tough place. That's a really tough issue. Um, so trafficking, obviously, my new film coming out November 3rd in theaters, a Fathom event, 678 theaters. If you guys haven't heard, called "It's Happening Right Here."
Awesome.
One of the reasons I was driven to make that film is after making a few films with OUR. people at church and friends and kids' parents at school of my kids would be like, they would ask me what I was working on. They'd say, "Oh my gosh, that's so sad. That's happening in Haiti and Colombia and Mexico." And I just said it's happening right here so many times. I like had to make the film. And the film really is about how trafficking is so different than what you think it is now. Not that people don't get kidnapped, not that there's not snatch and grabs, but like a ton of it is digital. I think most of it
Yes,
is digital these days, and we
yes,
cover a lot of that. Now, in the same vein, organ harvesting is a really hard thing to
yeah,
wrap your head around. Like, how would that even happen? We've all heard the urban legend of the being left in the bathtub with one kidney missing, with a cell phone next to us. Like, I don't think any, I know I haven't had any firsthand experience with it other than working on a couple ops things with OUR's side. I mean, tell us about what this really is, how it
yeah.
really works, and then we'll talk more about the unexpected, your movie. But by the way, how are people going to be able to see the movie? Just give a tease for that. Like, what's the best way to support you right now?
Yeah, so we're gonna release the movie on YouTube. Just keep it simple. We had an
Yeah.
opportunity to release it with a distributor, which we got paid and all of that. But with that, then people are gonna have to pay to watch it, and we didn't. We just want this message to get out there to the world, so we're just dropping it on YouTube on September 30th,
Okay.
and people will be able to watch it on my YouTube channel, Remi Adeleke. All they have to do is either search my name or search The Unexpected, which is the title of the film, and it should pop up. On our YouTube channel now, we've also been releasing some promo interviews with some of the cast and producers, so people can get up to speed with this project and what it's about. So that's
Yeah.
that's the best way to be able to
All right,
see it.
September 30th. We will share that, and I've seen it. It's great. Make sure you watch it. Make sure you share it. And what I
Yeah,
love about it, Remy, it is a really important topic that's hard to talk
right.
about. So great,
Yes.
good on you for making some entertainment around it. So it's like it opens a discussion.
Yeah.
But yeah, tell us what organ harvesting really is and sort of the ways it happens.
Yeah, so I'll start off with the way it happens. It happens in three different ways, based off of all my research, what I've seen, what I've done over the last few years. One, there are people who, as we touched on, they're just so desperate that they're willing to give up a kidney and or give up a child to give up specific organs or give up a family member. For example, Egypt is considered the organ harvesting capital of the world, and the
Wow.
people in Egypt, a lot of people in Egypt live in abject poverty. There's a lot of migrants who migrate from other parts of the world to Egypt for better opportunities, and there's tons of documentation of people who are poor who have sold kidneys or other organs in order to just try and get a step up or get a better opportunity. In fact, in 2016, a clinic was raided and 45 people were detained, arrested, who were part of this organ harvesting ring. Of the 45, the majority of them were doctors and nurses, which is another aspect of the organ harvesting ring. People think that it's a bunch of idiots in a back room who cut somebody up and don't know what they're doing. A lot of the people involved in this are people with very well documented, established resumes in the medical field, along with the 45 people that were detained. Millions of dollars were detained. So you do have the people you do have the victims who are desperate. But the second facet that I'll touch on are the people who are tricked. For example, there's a story out of India, and all of these stories I'm touching on, all you got to do is just Google India organ harvesting or Google Cairo or Egypt. And this is not stuff that's a wise tale, or like you said, the person that wakes up and all that stuff is a fairy tale. These are all actually well documented cases. There was a woman in India who was in the low caste system, and she got this email one day from this person in New Delhi that said, "Hey, if you come here to New Delhi, we have a job opportunity for you. We'll pay for your travel." She traveled to New Delhi. She was put in an apartment. The trafficker, who said he was the employer, told her when she got there, "You need to go get a doctor. You have to have a doctor's checkup tomorrow." She goes to the clinic the next day. The only thing that saved her life was the fact that she was attentive. After she got undressed, she heard the nurse say to the doctor, in a different room, "Hey, this is a girl that's going to be giving up these specific organs." She got dressed, boogied out of there. She reported the clinic and her employer to the police. The police were able to uncover a multi-million-dollar organ harvesting ring that had been going on for years. So that's the second facet. The third facet, so you have the people who willingly give up organs. And just to touch on that as well, there's a story out of Costa Rica where an Israeli broker, he was having Israelis come from Israel to Costa Rica and matching those people who needed kidneys with poor Costa Ricans who needed money, right? And that whole freaking organ harvesting ring got uncovered and exposed. So you got the willing participants, which still doesn't make it legal and okay because these traffickers are preying
Right,
on the
right,
desperation of people.
right.
Then you have those who are tricked, and then you have people like in my story, and where people who are detained or captured or taken hostage, and their organs are trafficked, their organs are taken out and sold on the black market. For example, I interviewed a guy 3 weeks ago. I'm going to be releasing his interview next week. I'm going to do a teaser video next week. He was trafficked from Venezuela to Colombia to Mexico. How did he end up getting there? There were pamphlets, the cartel, traffickers, gangs, other nefarious figures, what's happening on the Mexican borders. They're creating these fake travel agencies, right? And they're essentially luring people, not just people from South America, but people from all around the world to this particular part of Mexico and saying, we will help to get you into the United States, right? So this particular guy, I won't mention his name, and we blurred out his face for the interview. He was lured to Mexico with this fake travel by this fake travel agency. Said, just come here to this place in Mexico. We'll get you a job, and then we'll get you into America. He gets to Mexico. Make a long story short, he's essentially thrown into the back of a car, stabbed, beat up, driven to another location, thrown in the trunk of the car. In the trunk of the car were three girls that were duct taped. They were all driven to a mansion in Mexico. When they got to the mansion was filled with like 100 people. The the men were used for labor, and after a certain amount of time, they were ordered to call family members in America and told that if those family members paid $9,000, that they would be essentially allowed to they would be trafficked, they would be moved into the U.S. As soon as the men paid the $9,000, they were executed. The women were used for sex trafficking, and the kids were used for a variation of organ harvesting and or drug smuggling. Right, so the kids are essentially trapped to the cartel. They're easy. They're not as screened as the adults, right? And they were moved in. Some of the kids, and this is something that's been going on for a long period of time. I remember meeting with Border Patrol, and he showed me pictures of a baby that had been cut open and packed with drugs, and the baby was swaddled, and the baby was dead. And that vehicle was crossing to the border. The dog sniffing, the dog, whatever they call it, the canine that smells for drugs, smelled the car. It was like, the dog was like, there's drugs somewhere in this car. And come to find out, the baby didn't wake up, and they checked the baby, realized the baby was dead. The drugs were in the baby. So that was another way that that people were used. So again, that's another facet where people are essentially detained and said, hey, you're going to be used. And that's the facet that my film touches on. People who are taken under their will and essentially forced to, give up organs to die.
Wow. Yeah, one thing I've learned again getting into this work. I mean, both of us were introduced to it, really by Tim Ballard and OUR. One of the things I've realized is there are many facets of ways that any sort of trafficking or organ harvesting can happen, but really where the majority of it happens is the most vulnerable people. And
Yes.
so, I'm working on a project right now that starts in the Ukraine.
Yeah.
um, and I learned this from Tim, during times of war, natural disaster, any time of just absolute uh, desecration where things are really brutal and people are really vulnerable. Traffickers call that harvest time. That's the
Yes.
time
Yeah.
they can go harvest people because they can talk someone who's desperate into just about anything. Oh, come with me, I'll help you do this. Or we're covering a story of Venezuelan girls who were lured to the Dominican Republic for hospitality jobs, right? And
Yeah.
they same thing. They were trafficked. Their passports were taken. They were then put in. You can work your way out of this, but every night you stay. That they're in prison, they're adding to their bills. They're basically
Yeah.
making it so they can't get out. And
Yeah. Yeah.
so, but it is people who a police officer, I think one's a lawyer, a teacher, people
Yeah.
who left because they couldn't make money in Venezuela to feed their families. So they're like, all right, I'll go do this. And
Yeah.
when you look back, it definitely looks too good to be true.
Yeah,
But like that's really easy to look back and say that. And when you're in a vulnerable state where you really don't know what's coming next, how I'm going to feed my family, how there's no work in Venezuela right now. It's hard to get food. Like
yeah.
you, I would have probably taken the opportunity. I wouldn't have seen that it looked too good to be true. It's like maybe this is the time that I'm just going to get. Maybe someone's helping me out here, and
100%.
it's brutal, man. So yeah, I think it's really important for people to understand that as
And
well.
it's on the desperation of not just, you got the victims who are sometimes desperate. You have the traffickers, which are you have to be desperate to carry out such an evil atrocity. And
Yeah.
then you have the people who are receiving the organs as it relates to organ harvesting. We know that a clean heart and a clean lung just starts at $130,000 on the black market. We know that a liver and kidney is a little bit under $100,000, and we know that corneas can go for about $30,000. So
Wow.
if we take a human body, just the average human body, right? We could just say conservatively that body could be worth somewhere around $500,000.
Wow.
So which makes it more lucrative for a trafficker nowadays and safer. Because think about it, when there's with sex trafficking, there's the risk of a John being an undercover NGO or John being an undercover cop. There's the risk of competition. There's the risk of the girl getting sick and dying.
Right.
And how long will it take a trafficker to make that kind of money? It's going to just off of one girl as it relates to just sex. So it's like it's more lucrative, it's safer. And case in point, there's a story out of, I'm sure you know this story well. There's a story out of Dallas this past June. A girl, she was went to the Dallas Mavericks game, got up, went to the bathroom, never came back. Her dad went looking for her, couldn't find her. Security, everybody couldn't find her. The cops finally came and wrote it off as, hey, she's just a runaway. Father got home, spoke to his wife, and he was like, this is not our daughter. We know that she wouldn't run away. So he ended up finding a nonprofit that focuses on human trafficking. And the guys within this nonprofit were veterans, and they were able to find her in a dark web. Like weeks later, come to find out, she was trafficked. She was moved to another part of town or another city, and she was being raped and sold. And they were able to carry out a sting where she was rescued. And all the traffickers, not all the traffickers, but a good number of the traffickers that were at that house were at the game. And so again, it's safer for traffickers right now because they're desperate. They can make more money and they can get away. I mean, because you take a body, sell organs, burn the body, nobody knows, right? Person just disappeared. So it's just one of those things now where everybody is absolutely desperate. And as it relates to organ harvesting, people don't realize that, especially healthy people don't realize that, there's always going to be a whole lot of people who need organs, and there's only
Yeah.
going to be so many few people who can give organs. 4,000 Americans die every year because they didn't get a kidney in time. And so healthy people like me and you, like that's something that's hard for us to understand because we don't need a kidney. We're not dealing in a
Right.
situation where
Right.
your heart. I spoke at a funeral about 3 weeks ago, and of a 20-year-old kid who died in a car accident, and he was a donor. And his heart, went to a girl who was 25, saved her life. His lungs went to a guy who was 27, saved his life, and then his kidneys went to two other people that saved their lives. And I bring that up to say that the number of people who were on the list just for that heart was long. Same thing with the lungs, same thing with the kidneys, right? And so, when you get people who are desperate, the people who are paying for these organs, and some of these people, like I portray in the film, they don't know they don't necessarily know that these organs are trafficked. They just think that they're dealing with a company or an organization that's going to help speed up the process, but they're desperate as well. And when you
Right.
have a kid that's dying, you'll be willing, whether you're an American or whatever, you'll be willing to pay whatever it costs to get that organ so your child or your loved one can survive. So the desperation factor doesn't just relate to the people who willingly, give up an organ, but it also relates to the traffickers themselves, which there's no justification there, but also the people who are receiving these organs, and that's just as it relates to organ harvesting.
Yeah, and it's crazy too. I mean, in some villages and cities and different places around the world. I mean, obviously, trafficking, also, drug trafficking, and everything. People just, a lot of kids grow up in these environments, and that's what's normal, or that's how you become a made man. And so, there's a lot of complex issues around this, and a lot of times lower level and sometimes upper level law enforcement and government are in on it sometimes too, because sometimes they're getting paid off to, to just look the other way. So it's a complicated thing. Um, Tell me, so The Unexpected is coming out September 30th. I want everyone to share it on YouTube. I love that you brought that up, because people ask me all the time, like, but Nick, how are we going to get distribution? I'm like, there's different reasons to do different things, clearly. But if distribution is all you're after, all you got to do is go to youtube.com and say thank you. Because if I want to give something to the world for free by tomorrow, I could do it. They'll translate it. They will literally do everything. However, I understand if you need to make your money back, you're like, there's different alternatives based on what you need to happen. But YouTube is a beautiful thing, man. It's a great place to distribute. We distributed Operation Toussaint originally on Amazon Prime, and so a lot of people could watch it. But Tim called me one day and said, "Hey Nick, there's people all across the world looking to watch this. Like, how could we do it?" I'm like, "Do you want it tomorrow?" He's like, "Yes." I'm like, "Well, you want to give it away for free?" He's like, "Absolutely." I'm like, click, And now I don't even know how many views we have on that now, but it's hundreds of thousands. And YouTube's a beautiful thing. Tell me this: what did you learn doing this? I think one of the greatest teachers is action, right? And you know that better than most. What was there anything that didn't go? You've seen some of the best. You've obviously learned as you've gone. You didn't do what a lot of people do, and just, I'm going to direct something, and you don't have a clue how to do anything, which is dangerous. You'll learn a lot, but it's dangerous. What did you learn, and what maybe didn't work the way you thought? What went better than you thought? Tell me about the experience.
And pull up a chair, brother. Well, the big thing is, biggest lesson that I learned is the importance of your team and picking the right team, and not being a tyrant and saying, hey, this is how things are going to be. The ability to be able to delegate to certain people and trust that you hire them and they're going to be able to do the job. Like, that was one of the biggest lessons that I learned. And and it's something that I did while I was on set, but it just, that was the biggest lesson that I learned. As far as another lesson, get it all on the page. Get it all on the page, because especially if you're a first time writer or director, it's like, I love being a writer director. I can't imagine, getting a script and saying, and then having to like direct that, especially early on in my career. But directing on the page as much as you can, so that way when you get on set, you're prepared. Having a good shot list, like all of that stuff was something that, like, I kind of had an idea about, but in application, that saved me tons of time, heartache, and pain. The ability to be flexible, that was another lesson. I wanted to be able to shoot in one location, but for a specific scene, but I had to break it up into two different locations, so we had to find something on the fly. There's a scene, I won't mention what it is, but there's a scene where we couldn't get a restaurant in time, so we had to shoot in a specific location. It wasn't a restaurant, so the ability to adjust and move. At the end of the day, again, hey, now I know I said the biggest lesson. I'm gonna say what the biggest learning lesson for me coming out of it. That trumps what I said earlier. Directing is leadership, and that kind of ties to what I said. But all it is being a leader of people, being a servant leader, being able to communicate your plans and ideas to the people who are working for you, being able to make a decision, especially when you're in the middle of a storm and everything is going haywire. You got to get this shot before you lose the light. It's all leadership. At the end of the day, if you're a good leader, in my opinion, you can figure out how to direct a good film. So out of everything I learned, and what helped me a lot the most, yes, I got to work with some great directors and consult and act with, Michael Bay and Peter Berg and Jakob Verbruggen and all of these legends. But the military lessons that I learned while in the military, those lessons about leadership, about team and leadership, those two lessons, the lessons that came out of that from the military is what helped me 100%. So many of those principles translates from the battlefield to the film set.
Makes a ton of sense. Actually, one of my good friends, Kenny Thomas, was in Battle of Mogadishu. Black Hawk Down is the movie
Yeah,
made about it, and I learned from him two things that I will always repeat and give him credit for.
yeah,
Obviously, Mission Men Me is not him, but I learned it from him, and it makes so much sense as a
yeah,
leader. The missions, if we decided the mission's important, all right, that's what we're after. Then the next thing is the men and the women and
yeah,
me. Like, but
yeah,
I got to put myself last in order
yes,
to accomplish the mission and make sure everyone's taken care of. Big
right,
servant leader lesson. The other one, he said, he's given me the best definition of leadership I've ever heard. And he said to me, Nick, leadership is the example you set for the people you serve.
yeah,
And I was like,
that's
oof, that, yes, got it. Okay, you're serving them. Number one, as a leader, you are serving them, and you
yeah,
better set the example. One of the things that I have learned, a couple things. People always ask me, "So, Nick, when are you going to get in some scripted stuff?" And
yeah,
you and I have a connection on a scripted project that I hope goes. I love it,
yeah,
but I did learn also that I don't think I have any interest in directing scripted stuff. I just don't think I have the patience. I like
yeah,
the thing I love about docs is it's like says it once, we're done. I can move on to another
yeah,
conversation. Who I
yeah,
don't. But I also love the fact that you said too, because people ask me like, so what does a director do? I'm like, I still don't know what a director does. But
yeah,
like, I love what you said. It's just it's to me, it's team building. Like I'm
yeah,
building a team that I can rely on because the best part about this gig that I've ever had and anything I've ever done is I am inept at 99% of the skills it takes to make a film. Like
yeah,
I could shoot a camera, but it's not going to look like my buddies
yeah,
who shoot them. I could
exactly,
edit, but you're not going to want to watch it. And so I literally
exactly,
have to rely on people who are way more talented than me. And it's really fun. Then you just got
yeah,
to clean out the bad actors, the people who, who have they have other motives or they don't have good attitudes or whatever else. But really, I think having failed at so many things before, filmmaking
yeah,
is the easiest thing I've ever done because I just build good teams of people that could succeed without me, and then I
yeah.
get to put my vision in. It's a really fun position to be in. I don't know if I would assume you agree.
100%. It's a SEAL team. Like it's a SEAL platoon. Like in your SEAL platoon, you have your OIC, who, in layman terms, your team leader who's in charge of the platoon. Then you have your AOIC, who's second in command. Then you have your chief, who's like the senior enlisted. And you have your sniper, you have your comms guy, you have your human guy, you have your breacher. All of these guys with these specialties. And I remember going on a deployment. I won't say the year, but because it was a crazy operation, and it was just 8 of us Americans in this country. Our closest QRF was on another continent, and all of it. Like I was a medic, but I was also a human guy. I was a wolfhound operator. We had like 2 snipers, and we had another medic, and we had a breacher. But we all had to be able to rely on a guy to our right and a guy to our left to do his job. And I couldn't do the job of a breacher because I wasn't a breacher. I couldn't do the job of a sniper because I wasn't a sniper. Just like guys couldn't do my job as a human guy, and the guy who wasn't a medic couldn't do my job as a human guy. Because I and my OIC, who's the director of the platoon, had to be. He wasn't doing all those jobs. His focus was okay. How do we accomplish this specific mission with these skill sets that are that I have at my disposal? And that's what it's about. It's like directing, as you said, it's a SEAL team. It's a team, and you have one person, and that one person makes the decisions, and one person receives input. Like, and that's another good thing about that's another attribute of a good leader is the ability to take input from your specialist, from your editor, from your DP, because I'm definitely not a DP, from all of these people, and then create a great product. That's all it is.
Well, I've
It's
got
fun.
more like an otter team because I didn't get SEAL training, but
Yeah,
it's been super fun to do that. And another again, just as when people give me wisdom, I like to give it back to others.
yeah,
There's a great book called The Bezos Letters by Steve Anderson, and he explains a principle from Jeff Bezos that Jeff says basically never hire someone you don't admire.
yeah,
And I take in every aspect of your life. And so like I truly admire my cinematographers because I can't do that. I
yeah,
also though I don't admire someone to clean my studio that I don't hire someone I don't admire to clean a place for me, while I
Yeah,
could do it and I would want to murder myself the whole time. Like, I
yeah,
want someone who's like really loves making sure that everything's in order, everything's in the right spot. It's gonna be ready for me to do my job, and I'm glad to pay them for that. And the coolest thing about it is when you find someone like that, they are so happy to do it. They love it. That's what they want to do. There's, believe it or not, there are accountants that are happy people if they can
yeah,
make the balance sheet match. Like,
yeah,
there are
yeah,
people for every job. And so, part of it is just inexperience, but don't be arrogant enough to think that just because you don't want to do something, that somebody else doesn't want to do it. And
exactly.
then find someone you admire, that
Yeah,
you really love the way they do it, and you're going to hire that person. Because then it just takes, like, people always ask me, I'm sure they ask you too, how do you get so much done? It's like, I actually don't do that much. I just
yeah,
make sure I got good people around me that are doing their jobs, and I
exactly.
support them. It's like a pretty simple deal. But
Yeah,
until you learn to let go a little bit, and you have people who you do trust that they got your back, that does get difficult. The Unexpected, September 30th. We're
yeah,
going to share it. For those of you who cannot wait, first of all, it's not announced yet. We'll share it soon, but Remi and I are going to be working on a project soon, which I'm super excited about. That is going to happen. The scripted one, maybe not. This is a documentary one, but it is going to happen. Number
yeah,
two, if you can't wait, you want to learn more, Remi's book, Transformed, is an incredible book. Uh, Really inspiring, great. Remi is a great writer. I did not know that till I read his book, until he wrote a script for us. Remi is a great writer. It's a story you want to read. And then now The Unexpected comes out September 30th. Watch it, share it. It's really interesting how entertainment like this can literally shift, world conversations. It can make one person question when they were offered, oh, I can speed this up for you if you just pay $20,000 or 100. It can make one person question that, and maybe it is legit.
yeah,
Probably not, but maybe it is. But at least make somebody check it. And just, these conversations are invaluable. So, if you've got kids, watch it yourself first. See if whether
yeah,
you think it's
yeah,
appropriate for them or not. Right. So do that yourself first. But these are conversations that have to be had. Remi, it's a tough issue. Thank you for tackling it. Thank you for doing what you do. Everybody watching Unexpected September 30th. Follow Remi on all the socials. He's got lots of cool stuff. There's like an announcement every day, so watch it close. And then, Remi, what else, man? What else can we finish with to help you out?
No, I would just say, yeah, you hit on it. This film is about bringing awareness. I've done so many interviews over the last few weeks and talked to different people, and the first thing that comes to mind, especially people who watch the film, I've allowed them to get a sneak peek. They always say, "I didn't know, like that happens. Like I didn't think that happened. I didn't think that organ harvesting is real." Because when and even on the human trafficking side, when they hear it's a human trafficking film, their mind goes to one thing, which is sex
Right,
trafficking, which a
right,
lot of people don't realize that human trafficking covers a plethora. I mean, it covers organ harvesting, it covers labor, it covers, forced marriages. There's a recent story that came out about this Chinese guy who went to Cambodia, and he was blood trafficked by a gang. They just kept on drawing his blood and replenishing
oh
it
my
and drawing his.
gosh.
It's open source. It's a big article that came out recently. Vice did the story on it as well as Yahoo News. So there's different facets of it, and my goal with this film was to expose this one facet, organ harvesting, that in my opinion is grossly underlooked. It's a multi-billion-dollar enterprise on the black market now, and it needs to be discussed. And the last thing I'll say on that, and this relates to all trafficking, but for me, again, my focus is organ harvesting, so I'll kind of connect it a little bit more to organ harvesting. You know, I hear a lot of people say, and I've heard a lot of people say, if I lived in the 1800s, I would do everything to stop slavery. I would fight the slave masters. I'd pick up guns. I'd go to war. Like I hear so many people say that. And my message to those people are, guess what? There's more people enslaved around the world today than any other time in human history. It's a $32 billion industry. 30,000 people die every year in captivity, and that's just sex trafficking. That's not organ harvesting, labor. That's just sex trafficking. They die from torture and disease. Of the 600 to 800,000 globally trafficked victims, the majority of them are women and children. This is real, and slavery is happening right under our noses every single day. And my hopes is that people will watch this film, your film, all the other films and projects that are out there that's trying to bring awareness, and then engage in the fight. It's not just about entertainment. We don't make these films to entertain. yes, that's part of it, but we also make these films to educate and motivate people with truth and get them to do something. Even if it's supporting a nonprofit, even if it's learning the signs and symptoms. So if you see somebody at an airport, like the recent story, this flight attendant in Delta who she was on a plane and she saw just something wasn't right with this little kid, this adult. It just wasn't, and she recognized the signs and symptoms, and then she reported it, and come to find out that child was being trafficked. So we want you all to do something, and just as you say, you would do something in the this is happening.
Uh, Totally agreed. And, there, Google it. You'll find plenty of organizations, plenty of people trying to do the right thing. I certainly vouch for Operation Underground Railroad. I think they're doing amazing work. You should check them out. That's one place to start. Check out Remi's film, share it. And yeah, you brought up a great point. We only make these entertainment pieces so that we can trick you into watching them and learning about the issue. I mean, if we didn't make it entertaining, you don't want to watch the documentary you had to watch on sex education in 10th grade or whatever. Like, it's like we're not doing that. We're making it entertaining, so you will watch it. I assure you, it's a great watch. It's entertaining. It's also, too, the nice thing for this one, Remi, it's a short. I mean, how long is it? I don't remember. It's not that long though.
32 minutes. 32 minutes. Yeah.
Yeah, after 32 minutes, if you can give 32 minutes of your life to learn more about this and share it, I'll certainly be supporting September 30th. Remi, thanks so much for joining me again here on Now to Next, and I wish you great luck with it.
Thank you, Brother Nick. I appreciate you. Thank you for having me on.
Hey, Nick Nanton here, and thanks for tuning in to Now to Next. I want to make sure you don't miss a single episode of this show on YouTube, so be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, just go into your settings and switch on notifications. Thanks for watching.